And we're back with story time. Live in Dallas. I'm going to be speaking at the JNF Gala tonight and then DJing. Last night was amazing. I went to see Matasiahu, my boy, play in LA. And everyone was there from Emmanuel Shriki to Scooter Braun. But what was amazing was that Matis brought on these Holocaust survivors and their kids and their kids' kids. And it was just such a powerful moment. And then he started singing Am Yisrael Chai and said, everybody sing with him. And everybody, the place was packed. It was at Saban Theater, and everybody just started singing. And he was in the middle of his song, I Will Be Light. So after everyone sang, he went into the lyrics of his song, which are one tiny moment in time for light to shine and burn away the darkness. And it's really this idea which we talk about, which we read about this week in the Torah portion, kedoshim. And we read kedoshim to you, which is that you will be holy, but also to be holy. And if there's one tiny moment in time, right, that he's talking about to sort of burn away the darkness, and if the world is recreated at every moment, then that means every moment we could choose continually to be in the light, to be in this positive space. And if we're all mirroring each other, we could be our own redeemers, and we'll all be in that space of light. And eventually that will dispel the darkness. So I kind of love those lyrics and that sentiment, and it was so powerful with these Holocaust survivors and their family. And I think the Lubavitcher Rebbe was asked once about the Holocaust, what's the revenge? What do you do in a situation like that? And he pulled out these albums of these Jewish families and their kids, and all of this. And he said, this is the Jewish revenge. So we're going to jump in. This is my third book, The Sound of Illumination in the Light of the Infinite series. We're in the chapter called Cheat Codes to Holiness for Parashat, for the Torah portion kedoshim. And it's page 99 if you have the book. And if you don't, it's on Amazon, so you can grab any of the 5 books. Light of the Infinite, Eretz Safar. So I start with this quote by the Maggid of Mezrich that I love. My kedushah, holiness, is greater than yours. And we'll start to understand what that means in a second, because it's not what you think it means. So people always tell me it's so LA to talk about energy and vibes, but I think perhaps it's just more openly discussed here. In truth, we all feel and are affected by both. That's why it's so important to be mindful of the company we keep. I often place myself in what I call sacred spaces or spiritual environments, because when people are there to reach higher levels of being, it means the base level of what's expected is generally pretty elevated. I often go to spaces that one rabbi in particular will be at, and people ask if I'm a chassid of his, which is a follower. I'm not, but I find it inspiring to be in the presence of both this rebbe and the people that do follow him. I try to catch Mishmar, which is Thursday nights, which all over the world tends to be a Thursday night tradition for enrichment and spiritual growth. Mishmar in Hebrew means guard. It's named Mishmar because, similar to a military rotation of a watch, a community encourages people and often appoints a leader or a speaker to keep the spiritual life going. The last one I attended was at the beautiful house of my friend Yitzi Katz. David Sachs spoke, and I don't believe I've ever heard him speak without being completely blown away by his words and his stories, his fresh perspective, and his delivery. He's always sure to not go even 1 minute over. So we went from the outside area into the dining room, all crowded, feeling as if we were in Jerusalem or Bnei Brak, packed in as tight as we could so that we could be close to this Rebbe. But in this case, it was in order to be close to creating holiness. Just then, one of the guys began singing a nigun, a Hasidic devotional melody, and everyone joined in. It was as if we were all melding into one, and our individual worries began to wash away. We then got more lively, and the energy elevated. I remember just then I turned to my friend Shua and said, "This is dope. This is what I needed right now." And he replied, "This is why I come every time. It grounds me during the week. Singing in this space reminds me that everything I'm worried about is small and will be fine. And this connects me to what matters and reminds me of why we're alive." I felt the holiness of each of us raising each other up. Kedoshim, holy ones, is my bar mitzvah parsha. I always consider myself lucky because it was a short one. and I had to memorize the trope to get all the notes and nuances correct. So with it being slightly less of a daunting task because of its length, I was able to sing it to everyone present without any mistakes. The Abarbanel teaches that the parasha of kedoshim repeats all the mitzvot, the commandments, mentioned previously to stress that they are meant to be practiced in an atmosphere of kedushah, of holiness, and not ever to be practiced mindlessly as habit. We demonstrate this when we perform a mitzvah, a commandment, saying, Asher kiddushanu mitzvotav, who has made us holy with his mitzvot. We proclaim that the mitzvot are the basis for kedushah, holiness, and as our sages say, whoever sanctifies himself from below is sanctified from above. The recurring theme throughout all of these devars that I write, or the chapters of this book, is how to bring more blessings into our lives. It started with my project, Don't Block Your Blessings, and now looking at the weekly Torah readings and Kabbalah with this project, Light of the Infinite. I'm hoping these words inspire you to delve deeper in the Torah and Kabbalistic texts. As Chaim Vital says, one can go deeper and deeper as far as the human mind can delve, and it will always yield new treasures. As I often say, life can be so precious if you're present. And the Torah is the present that presents, or rather, the Torah is the present that presents the tools of how to sanctify time, space, and oneself. When we have full faith that this world is like a corridor to the world to come, we can tap more into our purpose and our spirit and worry less about the temporal realities of this world. Avram Joshua Heschel writes in Man in Search of God, religion begins with the consciousness that something is asked of us. It's in that tense, eternal asking in which the soul is caught and in which man's answer is elicited. This, in a sense, is what Munbaz, a righteous king who lived at the end of the second Beit HaMikdash, Holy Temple era, meant when he answered his detractors stating, "My ancestors stored for this world, but I stored for the world to come." King Munbaz was a convert, the son of Queen Helene. During a famine, Munbaz opened the royal treasures and dispersed the riches to the poor. His family, angry at the loss of their wealth, united against him. "How can you do this? Your ancestors gathered and saved treasures, only ever adding to them, and you squandered it all." He explained that they stored money, he stored souls. They stored riches only for themselves, while he shared the riches with the poor and united souls. The ultimate in Ahavat Israel, loving one another in Israel. In an attempt to explain it in a way that they might understand, he said he was storing the ultimate reward, the reward in the world to come. Albert Einstein was quoted in Life magazine in conversation with William Miller, sharing, "The important thing is not to stop questioning. Curiosity has its own reason for existing. One cannot help but be in awe when contemplating the mysteries of eternity, of life, of the marvelous structure of reality. It's enough if one tries merely to comprehend a little of the mystery every day. The important thing is not to stop questioning. Never lose a holy curiosity." So this Torah portion opens commanding us to be holy. Kedoshim to you, be holy because I, God, your Lord, am holy, implying that we should always seek greater levels of kedushah. We can also interpret the Hebrew words kedoshim to you as a divine assurance that we will attain kedushah. If we sanctify Hashem, God's name, as we learn in Pirkei Avot, one who honors Torah will be honored. As we read further in the Torah portion, observe my Sabbaths and fear my sanctuary. I am God. Rab Natan of Breslov teaches that the main tool a person can use to subdue materialism and elevate their spirituality is awe and fear of Hashem, explaining that the fear my sanctuary means that if one has fear, they can experience my temple, for they have ascended above materialism. When the Maggid says, "My kedushah, holiness, is greater than yours," he wasn't saying, "I'm holier than you." Rather, my kedushah, my holiness stems from your kedushah, your holiness. This connects to a fundamental Torah concept, mitzvah goveret mitzvah, which is a commandment or a good deed begets another one, or pulls another one in its wake. The Maggid takes this idea into the realm of kedushah, holiness. If someone else does a holy act, it inspires you to be holier for yourself and for others. And so your holiness increases beyond the initial act. The Maggid is saying that your kedushah, holiness, makes his kedushah greater because each of us has the power to make others holier. And as Avram Joshua Heschel reminds us, every moment is the opportunity for greatness. One cheat code to heaven is that if the mitzvot, commandments, and teaching Torah to others The Lubavitcher Rebbe teaches that by bringing another close to the Torah, one becomes their teacher. And the disciple will argue, in Olam Haba, the world to come, I cannot be here without my master. And so, the one who shared Torah will be immediately placed in Gan Eden. Rashi points out that this Torah portion must be read in public assembly, because the holiness of the Torah has no place in isolation. The fundamental purpose of Torah is to teach us to love our fellow human being, bring them closer to kedushah. And the Midrash says, if you make yourself holy, I will consider it as if you made me holy. If we limit our pursuits to nature, Hashem, God, acts naturally toward us. If we raise ourselves above nature, Hashem, God, deals with us in a way that's supernatural. But faced with this daunting task of making ourselves and even Hashem holy, the Ohev Yisrael teaches that one might say, how can we attain that level, since our lusts control our desires? How is it possible that when one engages in physical pleasures, he adds to the dimensions of prisha, separateness, and kedushah? It is for this reason that the Torah states, Ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokecha. For I am Hashem, your God, am holy. Just as Hashem fills all the worlds and beyond, but is separate from it, we too must exist in the world, interface with physicality and humanity without becoming engulfed by it. We are made in Hashem, God's image, so as our purpose is to try to emulate His holy presence in this world and His holy transcendence of it. The Khatam Sofer points out that the two distinct names of Hashem used in this phrase, Ki Kadosh Ani Hashem Elokecha, come to teach us two different ways God relates to the world and that we can relate to God. First, the He is the name that is totally beyond our comprehension, but is followed with Elokechem, literally our God, which implies the special intimate relationship between us and the Infinite One. Even the preceding words, Kadosh Ani, I am holy, imply this dual relationship. While Kadosh implies separation from this world, the preceding word of Ani, I, is there to simply and to imply Hashem's personal closeness to us. So, being made in Hashem's image, we must separate ourselves from the world in ways abstaining from certain materialism, but also make ourselves close to the world, elevating the mundane and spiritualizing reality. Hashem called to Moses from the mountain, saying, if you hearken well to me and observe my covenant, you shall be to me the most beloved treasure of all peoples, for mine is the entire world. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Another thing that Matisyahu talked about last night. These are the words you shall speak to the children of Israel. Our task is to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. This priestly function is manifested through being kadosh, fulfilling the mitzvot, these commandments, in our private lives, and so bringing God consciousness and holiness to the world. We bring Hashem, God, to the world, and the world closer to Hashem. The prophet Isaiah termed the priestly function as a light to the nations, which is to sanctify oneself and uplift those around you, not to separate and isolate oneself. The Alter Rebbe points to Proverbs, the soul of man is a lamp of God, teaching that just like the flame of the lamp strains upwards, seeking to tear free of the wick and rise heavenward, so too does the godly soul in each of us constantly strive to tear free from the body and the material existence, and be nullified within its source in God. And as the Ramchal stresses in Misilat Yesharim, even when one is engaged in the physical activities required by the body, the soul must not deviate from its elevated intimacy. As it stated, my soul clings to you. Your right arm sustains me. If one sanctifies himself with the holiness of his Creator, even his physical actions come to partake of holiness. The Khatam Sofer points toward Avraham Avinu as a role model in this regard, that despite his exalted status, he not only invited in his contemporaries, he had a great impact on them. And it was because of this aspect of kedushah, being concerned about the spiritual welfare of others, that he was elevated and was a manifestation of kedoshim to you, which we start this Torah portion with. As the famous dictum goes, who is wise? The person who learns from everyone. This means that everyone has something that another person can learn from. And so everyone is rich, or rather is a rich person in the words of Pirkei Avot, in this regard by virtue of their unique quality. As it's written in Likutei Sichot by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, it follows that everyone is obligated to use their unique quality and talent to benefit others who do not possess it. And from this, that person will be blessed from above with those things which they may not possess. As we know from the first time blessings were written in the Torah, as it stated, those who bless shall be blessed. It's even more important to follow this path because the converse is also true. As it's stated explicitly in the Gemara, when failing to benefit another, there will be a lack of blessings and help from above. The Gemara concludes stating that the rich themselves may become poor. The Lubavitcher Rebbe relates that the Torah, without Ahavat Israel, this love of another, will cease in the end. Relating a story of Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, hearing 3 teachings from the Baal Shem Tov. One of them pertained exactly to this. The Baal Shem Tov stressed that all Torah that is not combined with work will ultimately cease. The term work refers to the efforts in Ahavat Israel, in this love for everyone else. Essentially, if the Torah is to continue to endure, it must be combined with effort in Ahavat Israel. The lesson had such a profound impact on Rav Levi Yitzchak that all his life was devoted to the efforts on behalf of this idea of Ahavat Israel, loving the other. The great Rabbi Akiva taught that the fundamental principle of the Torah is the commandment which we read to love your neighbor as yourself. Many ask if that is possible when our default is selfishness and making sure, first and foremost, that we are taken care of. The Baal Shem Tov expounds on Rabbi Akiva's lesson that though we are aware of our many faults, we still look out for and love ourselves, and we need to do the same for those around us despite their faults. This is why these commandments to be holy were given in public assembly, as my holiness is your holiness, and vice versa. We need to uplift and elevate, and that can only be done when leading with love of the neighbor as yourself. If we look at the mitzvot, the commandments connected to childbirth and sex, and compare them to other traditions, views, and practices, the differences are actually significant. In some other religions, the clergy, the holiest practitioners of those religions, have to remain unmarried in order to avoid any sexual thought or behavior. Holiness is synonymous with abstention. In Judaism, sex is considered one of the most holy acts we can partake in, as it is a way in which we become partners with Hashem, with God, in creating. Just as we are meant to live in the world in all other ways with holy intentions, we are tasked with having sex with holy intentions and in a way of holiness so as to elevate something that has the potential for great darkness into infinite light. As Rabbi Moshe Yaakov Wisniewski writes in his preface to his translation of the Arizal's Divrei Torah, we see in these teachings the awesome power of the misuse of sexual energy, as well as the sublime heights to which holy sexuality can lift us. Yes, it's easier to follow the extreme of total denial or the extreme of total indulgence. It's far more challenging to take the middle path and fuse intense physicality and intense spirituality. But the reward of taking the latter path are far greater. And it is really the only way to navigate the pitfalls endemic to the extremes. God has programmed us with both a strong sexual drive and a strong spiritual drive. And ignoring one at the expense of the other is simply a recipe for disaster. The Arizal explains this is all part of Adam and Eve's primordial sin, and the constant battle we were forced into as humanity, or are still, always torn between opposing physical and spiritual inclinations. The more we act in a way of holiness, the more our spiritual inclinations connect us to Hashem, to God. Through our partnership with Hashem, choosing right over wrong, elevation over desecration, we grow spiritually, and then the spiritual everlasting rewards come. As we covered a few weeks ago and a few chapters ago in this book, the Zohar compares man to animals in regards to the korban, the sacrifice, deducing from the verse, and the 8th day of the skin of the orla should be circumcised. Being amidst the verses that deal with tum'ah, impurity, and tara, purity, of the woman giving birth. What we see in these readings, in both proximity and importance, is the sanctification of time, Shabbat, of man, Brit Milah, and of place, the korban. Hashem is kadosh, as it says, for I am kadosh. We, on the other hand, have the constant struggle to attain kedushah, this holiness. All of this comes to teach us how to free ourselves from that which is not holy and to take actions toward holiness, freedom, spirituality, and oneness. But all this can't be done in isolation. It must be done by inspiring each other, being lights for each other, and by virtue of that, ourselves. The mitzvot, the commandments, are cheat codes to holiness. When we choose to be shomer brit, careful of our covenant, we are choosing to live beyond our animalistic nature. to act in accordance with our infinite selves, our souls. All of nature can be used for darkness or for light. And that's what we were talking about before, jumping back to the Matisyahu later, that we have one tiny moment in life for light to shine and burn away the darkness. If we learn anything from Stan Lee and his Spider-Man comics, and I think we learned a lot, it's that with great power comes great responsibility. We have the power, we have the potential, we even have the cheat codes. It's only if we use them and tap into the infinite part of ourselves that we become supernatural. See some of you guys in Dallas tonight. See the rest of you guys in the Bay Area next week, in Israel next month, in LA, in between that, and God willing, in New York and Miami for Laugh Through the Heartbreak, that comedy series, or any of the other events I'm doing. Feel free to DM me. Love you guys. See you soon.